Hello, everyone. We'll give a few more seconds for people to start joining, but we have a very exciting show and tell for our May edition. We just got back last week or so from Milan Design Week, so we have a very exciting Milan Design Week edition. So while everyone is joining, I'll just remind everyone of some housekeeping. While today's session is going on, as always, we love hearing all of your feedback, your questions, your comments. And we also want to remind you that we'll be sharing the recording for today's session. So as you're going through today's webinar, please feel free to use the chat box down below. But as you're chatting, make sure that you're setting it to everyone so that all of today's attendees can see all of your comments and your feedbacks and not just the host and the panelist. And then before we dive into today's session, I'll hand it quickly over to Ellie from marketing to go over some of our upcoming webinars.
Hi, Hallie. Hi, everyone. Just a quick update today. Tomorrow, in partnership with Licensing International, we are hosting a session that challenges a common myth that sustainability kills creativity. So we'll explore how sustainability can act as a creative accelerator, sharpening aesthetics, strengthening brand positioning, and driving more intentional design. So to join for free, create a Licensing International account and use code Sustainability 2026 Future Snoops at registration. And if you haven't registered yet, you can visit futuresnoops.com/events or click the resource button in your Zoom toolbar. But that's it from me. I'll hand it back to Hallie to kick off our May show and tell.
Amazing. Stop sharing. Head to our deck quickly. So many tabs open. All right.
So everyone that hasn't known us already, we have a very, very special guest in attendance today here with me and Hallie. And this is one of the artists and designers, I think one of the very first people that we met when we entered Milan Design Week. And it was really hard to top his designs. We were blown away. So we invited him to speak a little bit about himself, his design process, his inspiration, and speak with all of you. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest, Mikal, and take it away.
Oh, I think you're muted. I think you're muted if you want to unmute. Sorry.
Mikal, you're muted. No. Mikal, you're muted as well. So if you wanted to unmute yourself, we would love to hear you speak about your designs.
Mhm. Let's see if we can unmute.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm muted now. I'm so sorry. Like I'm not very often using the Zoom. Um, First of all, I wanted to say I'm very very thankful for like so beautiful things that like a lot of people are telling me, and for this invitation. It's just warming my heart so much. Because the project I done, it's just like very very personal project. um, I can actually show you the place I'm living. It's the center of Warsaw. Um, and like I've got this kind of servant place with this beautiful, huge rooftop terrace. And then I can show you like inside because it's like very beautiful. But I was like very connected with a lot of people. And like here it's my kind of like all apartment, and I'm showing you that because like can you imagine this place without my object? It was like very, very tough for me. Like when I came here and like I was locked down with all my portraits of my family, which are like very, like they're like kind of very deep and depressing. So like when you are asking about the inspiration that I've got, I was trying to solve my problem, and like because I feel that we artists, we are kind of philosopher. We are trying to think about the new idea that is like answering for something that is um, important or interesting, and like I was always trying to follow that, and I always try to make something that it's kind of helping me. So when I like my story is like that, I finish painting and then I for many years like I was set designer and costume designer in theater. But I started very very young. My first my debut was when I was 21, and like from very first moment I was like I was working so much uh, because like we won the first festival after our debut play, and like we started to work really really a lot. But with my director and the drama writer, we've been always working on the very heavy political stuff, and also because like in my paintings I never wanted to just like stop painting and be on like make only set designing. I wanted to develop myself as an artist as well, and like my very main subject was my family, and in the beginning I was painting, but then I just like I thought that it's just like a point, and I thought that I mean because I was painting about the trauma of my family, and like I discovered this like very deep trauma in my family after the Second World War, which is also kind of unspoken story in Poland because my grandma, she was from East Prussia, the land that became to Poland after the Second World War, and my grandfather, who was Polish, killed her firstborn born son. So she never told us about her identity, and this very deep traumatic secret in my family was kind of not even like not spoken, of course, in my family, but like of course like in Poland we never we've been never talk what happened with German people who stayed here. So that was very deep story that like I couldn't actually tell by paintings, so I decided to make the documentary movie. And then I kind of, because it was so heavy, I burned out. And I moved first to Tangier, and then I traveled the world, and I got back to Poland uh, a week before the pandemic. And I just started to be so depressed here. And once I was working in Iceland during the polar night, and I bought there this kind of red heating bulb. So I thought that I kind of knew that like how strong and powerful is colorful light, and I just wanted to balance myself. I didn't want to forget because like the story is like it's my roots, and like I never wanted to forget. I just like wanted to balance. So I decided to make my objects, and like I will put it like in like I don't know how to turn my video now.
Yeah, that's
But I wanted to
perfect.
show you. So I've got here the my like I'm not really sure what I'm showing you because like as I told you, I'm not very good with the technology. But I'm trying to show you. I don't know, maybe this like I don't know, maybe here, maybe here I will say, or maybe I will just like try to turn on all my objects. Can you see me at all?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we can see you. It looks beautiful.
Okay, cool. So, like in the case of like, so this is kind of my first object that I made in the glass factory, because like you can see, like in the back, there's like very many different objects. Actually, I made them during the pandemic, and they are the first objects I made. They are made with the old glass, and actually, all the idea, like, because I was looking for this like thrown out, like people didn't want to have this kind of element, but when I started to create them, they were so like they are like from the different period of time, like from 30s and from 70s and so on, and like, and I thought that is kind of like androgyne, you know, the perfect love, like the lost in the cosmos elements that like I was able to put as one object. And then but I really wanted to have my, it's kind of a dream for the artist, for designer, to have a baby of their own. So like so this is kind of this is my first object I made in a glass factory, like here on the table. And so what happened is like that, because like when I was still working with all of these objects, I found kind of like a lampshade with this kind of color. And I, of course, it was the white ball in the beginning, but I thought that I was able to find the element that was matching together. Like you can see, like how many objects I've got here, like elements, and they're all in my all terrace. There's so many elements, so I had like a lot of things to test with. And but like in the beginning, I thought that it's gonna be orange, but of course it didn't happen. And I was frustrated because like I wanted to have like a warm, giving like a warm object, and I put inside the very specific blue vodka shot glass, and it happened something like that. You will not see that much. I will try to put as much uh, shade, but like they are really changing when the day shifts to the night. It is like very visible. Like so, this green ball, like here, it's blue, and when the colors are mixing, it's pink. You can see that.
Yes.
You could see that. Okay, cool. So then, because I was so amazed, it was so magical for me. So then I decided to make the disc to just like try to keep all the color gradients visible. So I made the disc. So the blue disc now it's pink, and the green ball now it's blue. That was pink a second ago. So then I made so many different colors, and like actually you can see that like just like here actually with the disc. But because I was like just excited about like how many different possibilities are in the in the colors, like in the working with colors. So I started to test, and like you can see that like they're like completely different, but actually they are just like in the beginning of their developing, like they're just like waking up at the moment, like let's say. Like those objects were just like white a second ago, right? This is my object I premiere during the Alcova, and I was so excited because like all of those objects are still working kind of with the color theory, but these objects are filtered only with little red and blue filter, like that you can see here. You can see here, uh, and they are creating completely different shades of colors. Even a little bit green or like orange, but it's just red and blue. So it's kind of against the color theory. And so yes, I was just like excited about that. So yeah, I'm just like exciting about developing this project more and more, and like connecting with you.
I don't know if you can see the comments in the chats, but everyone is really loving it, and people want to hear
Thank you.
more about it as well. But
No,
this
I
was
can't see
so
anything.
beautiful. No, this was a really lovely for you to join us. I again, when we met you at the very first, I think like first few minutes of Milan Design Week, every video I tried to take of your work, Hallie's in the background saying "Wow," because it was really quite magical. We were really impressed by just the glass, and then when you started experimenting, not with how the modularity of all the forms, but how you can change the color. This is incredible. And I think you're really
Thank
talented. So
you.
thank you so much for
Thank you
joining us
so much.
today.
Thank you. It's like it's very special to me. I like I could stop with my objects for myself, like in the beginning, they were working for me. But actually, when I just saw w- like what is going on there, I just like I thought that like I really want to share that with other people, and I'm just like so happy and excited that like I can be connected more and more with people, and like I'm so proud of them, but like not about me. I just saw something, but like they're like making like really magic. I don't understand them, so thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing. It really was magical, and thank you for being here with us. So we really appreciate it.
Feel free to take the back seat, enjoy the rest of the show, and we'll be sure to
Yes,
pass your
I
information
will
to
see for
everyone
you.
here. All of the people attending will be sure to pass your information so they can find out more and follow your
Thank
work.
you.
And you. Thank you
Thank
again
you.
so much for joining.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, so all of the links will be shared. So you'll have all of his information and be able to see this beautiful work. So yeah, this is what we saw at Alcova. And yeah, so we'll share some of the other things that we saw at Milan Design Week. I'll head into some of my favorite designs besides Michael's that we saw. So this designer that I also saw at Alcova was Llewellyn Chupin, and she is a French interior and furniture designer whose work bridges architecture, object, and atmosphere. And this particular collection was entitled Rituals of Adornment. And all of these pieces are meant to be vessels for contemplation, and they really invite the viewer to pause and really experience design and just beauty in general as a ritual. And because all of these pieces are also functional, but still a bit industrial, especially because of the material choice, that particular use of adornment becomes even more important in keeping the eye just lingering on these pieces. So the collection here is crafted by master artisans, and it brings together this hand patinated aluminum and the custom fitted jewelry pieces here, especially that wheat link chain that I think is so incredible, and that subtle drop. And then also the natural pearls here that hang off the back of that chair, like almost like the pearl drop earrings. I think it's so divine. And all of these materials together are chosen because of their ability to hold both fragility and endurance together. So some of the pieces in the collection include this two-seater bench. I believe it's the first piece of the collection that was designed, if I remember the designer telling me that. There's also a screen divider that's draped with a silk skirt that isn't shown here. There's also a customizable standing light that has almost these like really delicate chain drops in each of the four corners as an accent trim. And then in general, I think it's important to note that kind of an overarching theme that we saw across Milan Design Week, that we saw a lot of ways that jewelry really was inspiring furniture and home decor from other types of embellishments. So on one hand, we saw a lot of maximalist ways that jewelry embellishment was kind of coming into play. So really like gemstone inspired pieces. And then on the other hand, a lot of these kind of industrial piercing as ways of construction that was really interesting. So I think that what I loved about this collection in particular was the way that it almost was like the bridging in between. And also, just in talking with this designer, she said that in the beginning stages of creating this collection is that she really was inspired just to use ornamentation in her pieces and her designs. But really, the way that it ended up happening was that ornamentation became really restraint in her use, so that the way that these details ended up being so delicate and so deliberate kind of created this sense of resonance and really evoked that kind of sacred feeling of ritual and appreciation. And I just think that these pieces are so divine, so beautiful, and I just love them so much. And then the next installation that I really loved was this immersive collection by 6 a.m. Glassworks. And it really brought together these existing pieces, but also these new objects in this collective project that was a reflection on repetition as a generative principle in craftsmanship, in daily life. And it was shown in kind of the many creations that take form through repeated gestures, trials and errors, and kind of small variations through the process of design. So as you moved through this installation in this space, it was hosted in the historic Piscina Romano in Milan, which is an abandoned indoor swimming pool that was built in 1929. It was amazing. It still smelled like chlorine, which I love. So a lot of the elements and the modules of the products here were multiplied and varied over and over and over and over again, which was why the name of the installation was that. And so you can see some of the examples in the lamps in the two corners here. And so they were displayed in the long rows of about 10 of the original changing rooms in the pools, the indoor pools. So as you kind of walked along and observed each of them, they would change slightly over time and variation and kind of the design details. And it really allowed you to appreciate the intricacy and the repetition of that artisanal Murano glassmaking. And then in this collection, you also might recognize some of the original glass cubes or the glass cubes that were originally created for the set design for Bottega Veneta. So you'll see them kind of in the color here, but they were actually stacked and made that huge, massive wall. But they were also, again, created in some of the more vibrant counterparts throughout. But I think the really interesting elements here is that everything here was so grand and so impressive. And that really implies that sometimes repetition is both a burden and a necessity to produce at such a scale and with such control. And I think that what really encapsulated this was a quote that was at the beginning of the installation that I wanted to read. And it said that repetition makes failure tolerable and persistence possible. Through repetition, the individual gesture gradually loses its autonomy, while accumulation generates new meaning. Repetition becomes structure, grammar, and language. Artisans repeat in order to produce difference. So I thought that was just so beautiful. I really loved all these pieces, and I think that this installation was so beautifully done. I think that a lot of the lamps that were made were really beautiful, and just kind of the way that the walls were built and just kind of made everything super architectural and beautiful, and just all the glass work, again, was really stunning. We saw so much glass work throughout Milan Design Week. But yeah, I really enjoyed this installation, and just kind of the idea of repetition in craftsmanship was beautifully executed. And then the next installation that I really loved was by Belgian designer Elias van Oerschagen and interior architect Martin van Meerbeek. And they presented their collection called Garçonnière, pardon my French. And this was inspired by the historic and the private secondary apartment that was traditionally kept by members of the bourgeois class as a retreat from their formal homes, which is essentially the first bachelor pad or bachelor apartments. But however, for the purpose of this installation, this concept was all about these as interiors that really allowed for greater freedom, for expression and decoration and atmosphere, and really resulted in spaces that were more intimate and experimental and personal. So these designers reinterpreted this concept in a really small space in Milan's 5V neighborhood as this sort of staged and cinematic environment where the visitors first encountered kind of this backstage and environment where the architectural framework of the installation was deliberately exposed, and it kind of looked like you were walking onto an unfinished set. And I actually quite literally stumbled upon this site, as is pretty common in Milan Design Week, but I did actually first think I was walking into something that was not actually an exhibition at all. I thought I was in the wrong place. But when you actually enter the fully kind of composed space, it is really transporting. You see the whole place is actually lined with a stretched fabric. It's very decadent and all-encompassing. The fabric lines the walls. It really balances the soft and architectural furniture. But I think the really standout elements for me here was that this embellished lamp is kind of, again, bringing more of those jewelry-inspired elements here with the gemstone drops and charms. It kind of emitted this really radiating glow. It's both functional and contributes to the spatial atmosphere. You also have the mahogany daybed that's really gorgeous. And if you can see, it has these really intricate and incredible contrast wood grain. It complements the textures of both the wall and the rugs. but really every element here had such incredible character. It was so carefully considered and worked in unison with one another that added to this atmospheric element. And then finally, Solid Nature. This installation was part of Design Boom's Room for Dreams larger exhibition. But architecture firm AMO worked with Solid Nature to reinterpret one of the most mundane activities in Il Sono, or the supermarket. So, in contrast to the speed and the disposability of the everyday supermarket and the habit and the sometimes mindlessness of shopping for groceries, this concept of this exhibition shifts that idea of consumption towards the awareness of by replicating these everyday objects in this beautiful natural stone. And it becomes something a bit more precious, and it's something that we perceive to have more value and more durability and more authenticity. So not only is this a really beautiful and poignant concept, it was so much fun to kind of walk through and peruse this beautiful supermarket for us. So every object that you can see here is imagined in a supermarket was replicated in its own unique and natural stone. So everything from the shelves to even the cash register was in its own natural stone. So you have pink quartz apples, you have travertine coffee, even marbled meat cuts, and even the deli sandwiches are all like sliced in composite stones that are stacked together. My personal favorite, though, are the selenite eggs. So they come by the dozen or half dozen. They're so chic. I'm obsessed, as Rachel can attest. But we also got to experience this together. So if you have anything to add, Rachel, what are your favorite supermarket finds here?
Well, now I'm hungry. No, I've never seen Hadley so excited to be in a supermarket, but it was just absolutely gorgeous and it was super quiet. It was the dream supermarket experience, and I never thought I'd see supermarket meat look so beautiful. Never thought I'd say that either. But yeah, it was a really cool experience. I loved this one particularly as well. It's so hard to pick a few favorites. I wish the show and tell was 3 hours long to speak about everything that we loved during this time.
Yeah, I'll hand it over to you for your favorites.
Thank you. First up, one of our favorites here was from ASICS, and they had an installation at Garage 21. And Hallie and I had the chance to attend an early press preview before it opened publicly. And then we went back a little bit later for a friends and family DJ sound session after hours. And it was two completely different readings of the space in the best way. So during the day, it felt like this really immersive, quiet, almost design research lab. At night, it definitely shifted into something almost like a party, very communal, very energetic, very cool. And what I thought ASICS did really well was treating the sneaker not just as a product, but also as an entire spatial experience, because, of course, this is Milan Design Week. And ASICS used their mantra of sound mind, sound body philosophy, really coming through in that research concept, also promoting the research that they found that just 15 minutes and 9 seconds of physical activity a day is sufficient to significantly improve mental well-being, boost confidence, and reduce stress levels. And the installation was built around that concept and also showcasing the launch of one of their new sneakers, the Gel Kinetic 2.0. But instead of focusing just on the sneaker, putting it on a pedestal, they invited all the visitors to physically walk and move through this environment, giving this sensorial approach to the technology and allowing it to be felt and not just seen. And that's an ongoing conversation I'll be referring back to today as well. And what's really great is this project was created with LA-based studio Nuova. And if you know them, I think you've seen their work around. They have this time traveling inspired work. They're often blending architecture, fashion, music, nightlife, etc. They've done a lot of experiential and cultural projects that do sit between installation, retail, and performance spaces, often with this sort of cinematic retro futurist aesthetic, which, as you can see, worked really well in this space. The installation mixed Italian radical design, Japanese minimalism, retro futurism, and again, this almost fictional research institute narrative. And really, each room shifted with mood and energy, felt very grounded and physical in the room with the sand. And then it was more transcendent, more emotional as you move through the space, especially when you got to the sound aspect. And that sound design was a huge part of the experience as well, something we'll also get into a little bit later. But the music was curated by Mateo Garcia, and it made that space feel really alive rather than just static. I also really loved the custom uniforms by cult Japanese suit maker Soshio Tatsuki. So truly, they thought of every detail in this experience, and we really loved it. And I also have a quote pulled from the global head of marketing that I really resonated with, and I wanted to share with all of you. It says, culture takes time. It requires patience and consistency. It also needs to emerge from a place that feels natural to us. That's why moments like Milan Design Week are so meaningful. They allow us to speak about our craft and our design in a context that aligns with our values. Milan Design Week isn't just about furniture or art, it's about craftsmanship across disciplines that resonates strongly with us, especially when you think about the Japanese craftsmanship behind our products. And this is where we see the connection, sport, design, and culture as complementary layers. And we believe that we have a role to play within that space. So, very cool to see how all these new brands and designers are kind of claiming space within Milan Design Week, really incorporating the core of Milan Design Week and making it feel truly their own. And we can flip ahead to the next one. And Susanna, yes, you spelled that correct, Nuova. And this one here, Jimmy Rojas. So I got to attend the satellite section at Salone, which highlights emerging and up and coming designers. And I absolutely loved that section. It was so hard to pick one to focus on. But I wanted to really speak about this one designer today, Jimmy Rojas. I had the pleasure of meeting with him, learning about his designs and the inspirations behind his work. And I was really inspired. So Jimmy Rojas is a Venezuelan Colombian designer based in New York City, has a focus on creating emotionally resonant objects that bridge art, design, and cultural storytelling. He holds a background in industrial design and has a belief that everyday objects can become poetic and transformative. His work explores new ways of relating to the world around us, so reframing function as experience and often with a focus on sensory first design, as you can see here. Two of the pieces that I really loved are on either side of the images here. These gorgeous floral vase sculptures. And for me, they're both a hanging art piece as well as a really incredible functional object. And the design aims to reimagine fragrance as a living design. So, really allowing the scent to become this beautiful visual experience. And the reflection around the edge showcases the florals. And there's a small fan embedded in the design that amplifies the scent, so dispersing natural fragrance into the air. It also features a soft ambient light to double as a sculptural lamp. And it goes without saying, I was drawn to his booth because it smelled incredible. And then the more I spoke to him, I was like, this is incredible as well. And then last but not least, I really loved his design right in the middle. I wish there was sound on this video, but I'll let you imagine it. It's called Echo. And this is a wall key hook that turns coming home into an everyday ritual. So the piece was inspired by the symbolic use of bells and chimes in cultures where sound is associated with a cleansing energy and protection of the home and the self. So when you slide your keys into the bowl, there is a small bell that is activated, so releasing a very small, delicate chime that marks the moment between the outside world and the home. So creating this small signal to pause, breathe, and return to oneself. And he also had a really great quote. Echo is a reminder that coming home should be felt. And I really feel that quote. I love it. And we can move on to the next one here. Nike Air Lab, obviously one that I was really excited about as well, being the director of Active. So they unveiled a permanent space called Air Lab at Drop City inside these beautiful raw railway tunnels behind Central Station, and the space was absolutely incredible. So the core idea here was designing with air as a material focus. Obviously, it's invisible as a medium, but it shapes everything from the products that we use to the spaces that we live in. And the exhibition was organized around how air behaves. So, as a form, as a transformation, as an expansion, as a void, and as a force. The exhibition also showcased the past, present, and future of Nike Air. So there are around 100 prototypes, samples, and experiments. There was a mix of archive and also some forward-looking concepts within the drawers so you could really open up and explore on your own. There was even, as you can see in the video, there was a runner that was running live on the treadmill when you walked around the space. So it's very surreal, yet very cool. Seeing something authentic and quite analog, showcasing this technology in a very real and actual way. And then also one of the most memorable spaces was that inflatable lounge area at the very end. You can see the couch here in some of the photos. It's a soft, air-filled, of course, couch installation created by Vasto Gallery and was brought here specifically for this space in Milan. And inside that space, the walls and the seating areas, they had built-in speakers and a small library. People could sit, listen, work. We saw a lot of people working there and exploring the archive more deeply. So Hallie and I saw a lot of these areas throughout Milan Design Week that spoke to these audio escapes, designs built for human connection, more on that later, and archival libraries. And this particular Nike space really brought a lot of those conversations together in such a cool way. So again, I really loved the focus on air as a design language. It really showed how the idea of air is carried through everything. So not just footwear, not just in the machines, but also in furniture, in sound, and also in learning. Air as a structure in the couch, air as the sound through the speakers, air as the knowledge through the archive. Throughout the week, there were also workshops, movement sessions, and sound programming, really making this a truly interactive and special place. And also, as I said before, the key point here is that it's permanent. So this lab will continue to stay in Milan and continue to grow. And I think that's really cool that Nike's investing this creative lab within Milan, opening up their technology to a wider design community, and of course, offering access to innovation and experimentation for the future of design. I think we have one more on my section, and then me and Hallie have some shared ideas. So last but not least from me, I've really enjoyed this space from USM and Snoetta. It was called The Renaissance of the Real, and it was an installation in partnership with artist Annabelle Schneider, and it was set within this beautiful Italian garden space. We really loved it. It felt like this really calm, intentional contrast to the hustle and bustle and intensity of the rest of the design week. And the whole concept here was about slowing down and reconnecting to the physical body. So, as a response to the digital overload, the constant stimulation, and how we really become disconnected from our own senses. So, the idea here was that presence cannot be downloaded, and that really came through in this experience. So, if you know it, you love it. The rigid grid of the USM furniture, it contrasted with this huge, billowing, soft, inflated textile membrane that you can see in these photos. So as this cocoon-like form, it gently expanded and contracted in the wind, almost like it was breathing. So there was this really clear tension between structure and softness, control and vulnerability. And also the way you entered the space was quite gradual as well. So you're walking through the garden, the grid of all the furniture, you move into the slightly compressed opening and then into this huge, soft, diffused interior. There wasn't really a sharp transition. It was just a slow shift in light, in sound, in atmosphere. Me and Hallie had the best time inside as well. Everything became much more quieter, much more sensory. There was super soft filtered light, really subtle sound, scent, tactile materials. Again, the shadows of the trees outside really also became part of the experience. So they were moving slowly across the surface with the shadows. They also hosted vinyl listening sessions by Devin Turnbull, which brought in this sort of analog, physical way of experiencing sound. Again, this ongoing conversation, really reinforcing the idea of being present, listening together, and of course, slowing down. So overall, it felt a little bit less like something just to look at, something that was, of course, beautiful, but also a space to sit in and a space to feel. We always welcome this pause rather than a spectacle, an area that felt calm. And to me, it felt like exploring the inside of a cloud, which has always been a fantasy of mine. But what I really liked, it was a strong reminder of the value of these physical sensory experiences in a time that we're so dominated by screens and by speed, something I'm sure we can all relate to. I'm sure so many of us saw these images online as well, but when we experience something in person rather than scroll through it, it lives in our memory in such a different way. So I was super grateful to witness it firsthand with Hallie.
All right. And then we have some overarching trends to walk through. And then also as a reminder for any of our clients, we will have several full deep dive reports that will be on our platform in the upcoming weeks. So this is just barely scratching the surface of what we have. But yeah.
It was so hard to pick all of our favorites on here, but again, this ongoing conversation of audio escapes. And I was reminded yesterday by Lily, one of our co-founders, if you want to click the link, FS has been on this for a long time. So this was an image from 2017, and we're doing sound baths from the FS team. So we wanted to quickly give a reminder of that as well. And it's been really interesting to see this sort of audio escape grow and evolve since 2017, since even before that as well. So if you go back to the slide, Hallie, I think for us, it seems like if you were at Milan Design Week and you didn't have some sort of sound experience, were you even there? So we speak a lot about sensory design and with designers that are including sound within the spaces. And it really became one of those experiences, again, to be felt rather than just seen, as I noted in some of the activations before. It allowed you to really feel immersed in the space, really feel the designs. We have these huge standalone speakers, Hallie, my muse, and the Stone Island one there. We also have pieces such as beds and shelves that had speakers embedded within the design, which we saw all over the design week as well. And Hallie and I really loved seeing and hearing all of the different ways that sound was considered throughout Milan Design Week as well. So again, this page, just a small handful of a few of some of our favorites, but so many gorgeous and incredible displays throughout.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I feel like we've seen it over the past several years, at least that I've been at Milan Design Week, that like a lot of like the listening rooms, like they were kind of like they were like almost like the external events were kind of like the listening rooms, but now I feel like it's become like the actual experience. And then sometimes it's now even like even more so like the actual product that's being shown. So just kind of like the evolution of what the audio escapes has become. And then even like taking it a step further is that like I feel like every single like restaurant that we went to or like maybe like most of them we're like okay, let's go to like the listening bar, like that's also a restaurant. Like every night we went to one of those places to eat too, so it was almost like the 360 experience every time. So that was really cool and just like part of the experience. But I think it just added to the next level of the sensory engagement. But yeah, I think these are some of our favorite examples. But yeah, really cool and how it's been embedded into like the function of it. And just yeah, really, really cool.
More of this. And as Hallie
Yeah.
mentioned, we ate at one of the restaurants that we featured, if you're familiar with
Oh, yeah.
Refamiliar, one of our
Yeah.
design aesthetics. And it was really cool to see something that we've only seen online and experience it in person, but it really changes everything. So more sensorial experiences for me. I think it's a huge win.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like next year we want to do like a restaurant guide. So stay tuned for that
Stay
before
tuned. Stay
Milan
tuned.
Design Week. All right.
Something else that was really popular or popping up a lot for us was modularity and flexibility, which I think is important for the future of design specifically. So these were again just a few that we saw that really struck out to us. The first one, Joshi Green, we saw this in a space in the Convey group exhibition, and I really, really loved this design. So obviously a huge continuation of steel, aluminum, metal surfaces throughout this room, throughout all of Milan Design Week as a fact. And here the designs were inspired by Shaker designs, but made through this modern lens, through that material choice. I thought it was super smart, super sleek. There's this rail design system, if you can see in the photo. It has knobs that allows you to store and rearrange and live within this modular system, designed to evolve, adapt to different spaces and needs. The rail is available to hold shelves, mirrors, chairs, and other accessories that are hung on those standardized pegs. Again, super smart, really cohesive, and I love how purpose-driven this design was, as well as beautiful. And then right next to that, Lex Pot, a designer from my city here in Rotterdam. So one of our favorites here at FS. We know him from designing anything from creative candles, chairs, and truly everything in between. So he has a new design collab coming out with IKEA, and it was inspired by daily life and creating multifunctional pieces. Rather than designing three different lamps that serve three different purposes, he created one lamp that is multi-use, transitioning between floor lamp, spotlight, and reading lamp. And we got to play with it, and it was so much fun as well.
Yeah, and then the next one was Marta Sala. This was at Salone, and it was in a new section at Salone, which was Salone Raritas, which was kind of this more like curated section of like different galleries and designers. And this was basically the purpose of this table was to solve an accessibility problem for smaller spaces, which was perfect for someone who lives in New York, and was basically wanting to create a table or create two tables essentially for different heights. And instead of having a really complicated adjusting system, basically they cut the table base in half at a zigzag. And when assembled or reassembled kind of incorrectly, you almost kind of like slightly rotated it and the spikes kind of sit on adjustment. So you can create two different table sizes by just like slightly rotating it. And I think it's so simple and sleek and genius. And so you can have a side table and a dining table in one simple piece. And I just think it's like really simple. And I just like how a lot of these modularity and flexible pieces are designed for small spaces, but just still feel really simple and beautiful. Because I feel like a lot of times it can be really compact and almost like too plain. But I feel like the flexibility issue is getting more beautiful, which is lovely.
Agreed. And last but not least, I think when I made the GIF, it flattened the color on this, but this was a vibrant color green and it was gorgeous. But it's from a company called Door with an extra O, very long. So elastic fluid spaces is what they're known for. They're creating these flexible room dividers for modular living. Very sensorial. It was, I guess, made out of very thick plastic, but it was very pleasant to use and sensorial. So shaped by color, the material, even the perception. It had this bright green, thick material. It felt very space age, kind of like the A6, which I shared earlier. But what I loved here is that the walls aren't closing possibility, but they're rather opening up maybe curiosity, experimentation, kind of making the room fit whatever you want it to look like. And it also felt very Severance, but in the best possible way, the best way I can describe this exhibition as well.
And then for our final one, and maybe in my personal opinion, maybe the most important connective tissue at Blonde Design Week was kind of this return to design that fosters human connection. And I think it was evident from talking to sort of every designer and creator that we're all kind of craving this human connection and not even just talking person to person genuinely, but also we're all hungry for just design in general that feels tangible and real and human. And so I think a lot of just the conversations that we were having with people, but also just seeing design that also fosters that and brings people together was really evident. So the first example here I was obsessed with, and this is a table by Charlotte Taylor. Charlotte Taylor. It's called The Social Smoker. So this is a whole collection that's kind of all about these like private vices. But this table in particular is the perfect example of human connection in that it's a little bit cheeky, but it's still so beautiful. It's a table that's all about interaction. It invites participation. It's conceived as a centerpiece for gathering where there's a concealed track and it has this movable vessel and it kind of creates this action of motion and it's all about sharing. It's obviously integral to hosting, but the movable track, it can function as an ashtray, but also a snack bowl or maybe an incense holder. But the function ultimately is about participation, interaction. It's about moving it and sharing, and just kind of the idea of the gesture being embedded into the design, I think is so beautiful. But I also really love so many other items in her collection. So I recommend you checking it out. She has also the icebreaker side table that has an ice bucket that comes to the side. So if you're sharing a bottle of wine or champagne, and then she also has the nightcap mirror that has a retractable wine holder. So while you're getting ready for a night out, you can hold your glass of wine there. So all really
Perfect
clever
names.
and fun.
Perfect name.
I love it.
Perfect names for all of it. I love
Yeah,
that.
it was really cool, and I just loved the whole display of it. But this table I thought was so gorgeous. And then Superform here, also shown at Alcova. This whole concept was called Transit Encounters, but this was in collaboration with Aesthetic Joys. And this couch was called Seat in Touch. And it's almost this like cool, like conversation like pit. But really, this whole concept was set out to reflect on how such utilitarian and public spaces is really about bringing people together and creating new possibilities for shared presence. So, like when you're taking public transportation or in certain public or your urban environments and municipal services and infrastructures, you are essentially together with other humans and you're sharing the same spaces and having similar experiences, but you don't actually know each other. So they wanted to create this project that aims to transfer this type of like interaction and this recognizable sense of utility, but in a similar environment where people are gathering for a different purpose. They wanted to translate it slightly into a more comfortable setting and a more comfortable couch, but in the setting of Milan Design Week. So they created kind of this listening space. They hosted some lectures here during the week. We happened upon it where a guy was hosting like just a really casual DJ session. There was literally like maybe three other people there. So again, you'll kind of also notice that all of these trends that we were noticing are converging together. But it's really about this space where humans can coexist, come together, and just really this casual setting. But I love how like it's really just set up where like you're still together. It's a little bit utilitarian, but still a comfortable and spacious setting.
Obsessed with that couch.
Me too.
And last but not least, I would love to continue this conversation. I really love this chess game from this upcycling group called Re-Edit. And they created a game of chess that was inspired by the locals' love of the game chess in their hometown of Hong Kong. And this entire set, from the game pieces to the table to the chairs, was crafted entirely from upcycled materials. So, creating this opportunity to sit, chat, and come together over the game of chess. And Re-Edit, they used tea leaf waste. They also used scrap bamboo from construction scaffolding and recycled plastic. So, designing from products that are meant to be disassembled, rebuilt, and loved for years. Because, as they say, the best way to honor the earth is to make things that last, and which I think is a wonderful approach for all designers to consider, and the best way to end this session today.
Yeah. So we thank you all so much for joining it. Again, just barely scratching the surface of what we saw for an entire week at Milan Design Week. Yeah, we hope that you had a little dose of inspiration. And yeah, stay tuned for our many reports to come. And yeah, thank you again to Mikal for showing us his incredible pieces. We'll send out all of the links. You can follow his amazing work and continue to stay inspired. And yeah.
Thanks so much for everyone tuning in.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicole. So nice for you to join.